Boston School Superintendent Carol Johnson has been strongly criticized for a response to a case of domestic violence involving a school administrator. After reporting by the Boston Globe, Johnson said the failure to impose disciplinary action on the case was a mistake, and she came out with a new policy. By then, there were calls for Johnson's resignation by the head of the City Council Committee on Education, John Connolly, and by a group of parents. And tonight we talk with two of the parents circulating a petition calling for resignation. We'd like to welcome Angela Tang and Kenny Jervis. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Angela Tang, start by talking about your concerns.
Yes.
and why is it that you want to go this far with actually calling for the superintendent to resign?
I think that, a superintendent is so insensitive with the bilingual parents and students. Since she come in, never before, she created a multilingual school. What it means is like the English high. They put the Haitian high school kid in the Spanish program. And as a normal piece of reasonable people, that it didn't work. The Haitian student come in, go to the Spanish program. They don't know English, that's why they try to come in here to learn English. But they put in Spanish program. It means they know nothing. They sit there, that's why they drop out. And since Carol Johnson come in, a lot of kids drop out. And even our student put in regular Jackson Man class, which they misled that the Chinese parent that they have a Chinese bilingual program, but it doesn't. So the kid put in there have a great risk. Some of parents, because that send their kid go back to China.
Kenny Jervis, talk about your experience.
What I've seen is many initiatives that don't really seem to work, that can seem to work with the funding behind it, but that funding dries up, and then the programs are just left unfunded and not to their completion, which ends up being back at square one. I don't see the end result coming as far as the graduation rate that they always throw out, saying it's got higher, or even just the everyday feeling of pride and positiveness that a parent and a student should feel going to Boston schools. There just seems to be a lot of contention and divisiveness between the school communities and parent groups. It seems like we all have to fight for a little piece of the pie, where we should all be bringing ideas and gathering as a community to grow and help our kids learn, instead of always fighting for that certain issue that affects us.
You're a classical parent. The school was going to close in an earlier version of the superintendent's plans. She changed her mind. Now it's an innovation school. Kids read all those books. So what about it? Yeah,
that was a great program. Barry Tatum came and challenged our kids to read 10,000 books. They destroyed it, and they read over 13,000 books. That was a very fun and exciting aspect of the year. With that brought in many changes that were not so fun and were not so great for the kids. A much heavier discipline policy, more heavy concentration on testing and lots of data. And with that, just this feeling that created more about testing and much less with the creativity. And to be honest, thank God that that reading challenge was put forth to us, because that was a bright spot to a year that was met with lots of change, and I would say change that really for the overall wasn't so great.
Angela Tang, I know you talked about some very serious problems with some of the students who need help with English, a considerable number, I would gather, too. Yes. But if you look further back in the history under Tom Payzant, especially since the ballot question passed 10 years ago, there wasn't much progress then either. And I guess, again, it's sad to say this maybe, but isn't there more progress under this current superintendent than there was before?
Okay, just like people say, right now under Carol Johnson, we go backward 30 years. So, if you compare Dr. Payzant and you compared Dr. Michael Compton-Bass, one of my favorite. And, this one is the worst. She ignored our needs. And here is all the email that we sent her since she come in, and 09, 010, 11, ignore us. Never once want to sit down to talk with us. So, this superintendent have to go, because right now more than 50% is the bilingual student. If you don't teach them, you don't let them learn English, then, they will drop out. And the dropout rate right now is awful. And, how can you let the kid just sit in the class and know nothing? And worse, create a multilingual, put the Haitian people in the Spanish, put the Spanish student in the Chinese program.
Now, the dropout level is much too high. At the same time, it's not quite as bad as it was a few years ago.
Oh, you know what? They are very good in the numbers. You need to listen, but actually, is it the right number? I doubt it.
Coming back to Kenny, what about the timing here? Because right now is that if there were this solid consensus that the superintendent had to go and she actually left tomorrow morning, you don't get another superintendent that quickly, and you've got things hanging in balance right now too.
Right, and it definitely would create a void, and I would hope that if there was a change, parents, community organizers, the educators in the city would really gather and find a superintendent that would work for all of our needs, and really with an agenda of pushing forward the schools that we need for our community. We have to remember that Carol Johnson was a quick replacement for a superintendent that had figured out that Boston wasn't a good fit for him and left before taking the job. And she also put herself in the running because she was running into these same problems that we're facing here in Boston. She was creating down in Memphis. Memphis and Minneapolis are both glad to be rid of the chaos that she created in those communities, and now we are underneath that same sort of administration.
And just saying one other thing about this petition, it's also about having a process to really look into things here. So explain
Yes.
that a little bit.
I think that whether she goes or not, she needs to reprioritize. She cannot do the way she is. It's unthinkable. She support this person, know his violent behavior, and put the good word in the judge, and, send a good recommendation from the methods. Who, if she's smart, she's fair, she will never do that. So from one incident, her pattern. So, of course, if she left in here, will have some disadvantage. But I think that, in the Boston Public School, they have so many administrators can handle this job. Okay.